which will be conducted using Google Moderator, found at investor.google.com. As a reminder, we will only be taking questions that pertain to our mobile business and strategy today. Before we get started, let me quickly cover the safe harbor. Some of the statements we make today may be considered forward-looking, and these statements involve a number of risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially. Please note that these forward-looking statements reflect our opinions only as of the date of this presentation, and we undertake no obligation to revise or publicly release the results of any revision to these forward-looking statements in light of new information or future events. Please refer to our SEC filings, including our annual report on Form 10-K for the year ended December 31st, 2009, as well as our earnings press release for a more detailed description of the risk factors that may affect our results. Copies can be obtained from the SEC or by visiting the Investor Relations section of our website. Now I will turn it over to Patrick Pichette.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Pichette. I'm Google's Chief Financial Officer. And please welcome to this third in a series of our webcasts. In December, you'll remember, we spoke about our display business. And today, we're going to talk about another really exciting space for Google, which is the mobile business and our investments there. First, we'll hit Vik Gundutra, who's going to talk to us about the space in general and our mobile strategy. And then we'll be joined by Mario Queiroz, who is also tied to the Nexus One launch that you may have heard or Mario in the past. So first, Vik is going to cover the whole mobile, then Mario and Vik and I will be taking your questions. We'll be using Google Moderator, so please don't hesitate to log in your questions. And then one final reminder is Google's in quiet period right now, so please understand that we will not be answering any questions that is outside the topic that is covered today. So please do us a favor, once again, do not ask those questions because you'll see that we can't answer them. Thank you again, and with that, no further ado, I'll let Vik cover the topic for today. Thanks. Welcome, Vik.
Thank you, Patrick, and good afternoon, everybody. Nice to have so many join us on today's educational webcast on our mobile strategy. As Patrick mentioned, my name is Vik Gundutra. I'm Vice President of Engineering, responsible for our mobile applications. And today's afternoon's presentation is broken up into three broad areas. First, I'm going to talk about some industry trends. Trends that are really reshaping our industry and ones that we're very excited about at Google. Second, I'm going to talk about what drives our product and engineering philosophy as we deliver services to mobile phones. And I think you'll see that it's pretty unique and exciting. And then finally, we're going to close the presentation off with a focus on mobile advertising and how that changes in our mobile world. Let's begin by talking about industry trends. Now, it should be obvious that each successive computing era has had a greater impact on society than the previous one. And mobile phones are no different. Today, mobile phones and their connected nature lead to a larger impact than all the previous eras. But the reality is you probably already knew that. In fact, you may argue, well, Vik, there have been 1 billion phones that were sold last year. And certainly it's been many years that the run rate of mobile phones has been in the hundreds of millions. What is new? What's different now? Well, that's what this presentation's about. We're going to talk about the real change that has occurred in our industry, and that is the arrival of the mobile internet and why that change occurred. We believe it occurred because of simpler data plans, better browsers, and a new class of smarter devices. Let me talk about each of these specifically. Let's talk about data plans. You know, this emergence of a new class of phone, like the iPhone or the Android phone or the Palm phone, really has changed the dynamics. It's changed the dynamics because those phones come with data plans, simple to understand data plans. This chart gives you a powerful proof point of what happens when you give a consumer a simple to understand data plan. At first glance, this chart may seem counterintuitive to you. That green line represents Metro PCS, a small U.S. carrier with 5 million subscribers, and the chart represents internet usage as measured by proxying via Google. That bottom line is a carrier in the United States with similar Google placement on their phones and 10 times the number of users. But look at the usage. What's the difference between these two? Well, one of the difference, in addition to some different phone models, is that Metro PCS chose to go with a very simple to understand data plan, and that drove usage very, very high. In addition to data plans becoming attached to these new phones and simple data plans that are understandable, the other big sea change has been the inclusion of a new breed of web browser. In our industry, technically, we call these web browsers WebKit-based browsers because it represents the open source engine that powers that browser. But let me put it in simpler terms for you. It's a browser that works. 2 or 3 years ago, I suspect most of you wouldn't have believed that it was possible to visit your favorite website, CNN.com, ESPN.com, on your mobile phone. Your mobile phone was too small. Connectivity rates were too low. The browser didn't work. And yet, what we're seeing in the industry is a rush toward high-fidelity web browsers that are capable of running and rendering full websites. And that is a sea change, and one that's very exciting for Google. The final change is, in fact, that the phones themselves have become incredibly capable. Today, or before I talk about today, if you just recall a few years ago, the smartphone category represented about 2% of the market. It was about a $600 phone at least. And the idea that a $600 smartphone would go mainstream as recently as 2 years ago had some doubt. But in fact, that's what's happened. Today, the average soccer mom or soccer dad has a smartphone, a phone that is replacing the feature phone category. And that bodes very well for Google's business. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's not just theories, it's data that really proves this sea change. This chart is, once again, very enlightening. What it highlights is a percentage share of internet usage. Now, I suspect you would believe that without seeing this data, that the phones that had the highest market share would have the highest usage share. That is not true. Phones like the iPhone and Android devices that have powerful WebKit browsers with flat data plans associated with them, in fact, have dramatically higher market usage than their market share numbers would indicate. What does this mean? It means that as all these other vendors come out with more powerful browsers, we should expect similar usage patterns to go up. The mobile internet is happening on mobile phones, and that makes us at Google very excited about the opportunities. In fact, let me talk about what Google has seen in its business. First of all, the simplest measure of our momentum is search traffic. And that search traffic on mobile phones has gone up 5 times in the last 2 years. And as you can see by that chart, it is a trend that is accelerating. It's not just Google search. It's the use of our applications on mobile devices. That middle chart, we chose to highlight one of our popular applications, Google Mobile Maps. Would you believe that we have 50 million active users of that product? And the growth there has been spectacular. And finally, that last chart is also one that's incredibly enlightening. Now, to understand that last chart, you must think about how Google advertised on mobile phones a few years ago. A few years ago, feature phones dominated the landscape, and Google served what was called a WAP ad. A WAP ad is an ad for these feature phones that's designed for the very limited functionality that that phone has. Well, WAP ads have very limited inventory, but the emergence of the smartphone category, the superphone category, meant browsers that were capable of rendering desktop websites and rendering desktop ads. And so we were able to take ads out of our desktop inventory and serve them to these high-end phones, which are increasingly becoming mainstream. And that chart represents the mix shift of our revenue to these high-end phones, a trend that we think is incredibly exciting. All right, that's an overview of the industry and some of the changes. Smartphones going mainstream, data plans being associated with phone, the emergence of WebKit-based browsers across these devices. Let's now shift and talk about Google's applications. Now, when you look at Google's applications for mobile phones, one thing becomes immediately clear. Google has bet big on mobile. If you take your phone and go to m.google.com, you get a list of just some of the apps, the services that we have. And it seems that across the company, whether it be Gmail or YouTube or blogger services or reader services, they have versions that we've delivered for mobile phones, particularly those mobile phones that are capable of these services. But I want to highlight that it is not our strategy to take our desktop products and simply create mini versions of those products for the mobile phone. We believe that would be a mistake. The mobile phone is different, and it offers us a new opportunity to rethink our applications or deliver new kinds of applications. How is it different? Well, think about your mobile phone. Your mobile phone has a speaker, it's got a microphone, it's got a GPS chip, it might have a touch screen. So some of you may say, well, what's so different? I've had a microphone, a camera before. Remember, what makes it different is that this sensor-rich device is connected to a Google Cloud. And that connected nature transforms these humble elements, turns a speaker into something that can understand human voice. It turns a camera into potentially something we can apply computer vision against and become a digital eye. It turns a GPS chip into something that we can apply very amazing location magic to. Now, I could talk about this for half an hour, but let me just show you some demonstrations. These demonstrations are designed to show you what happens when you combine a sensor-rich device with the connected nature to a powerful set of computing resources in the cloud. Okay? Let's switch over to demos. Now, the first demonstration I'm going to give to you is our voice search product. This is a product where you speak into your phone, and our systems transcribe that back into text. Now, some of you are going to say, well, voice recognition has been with us for 20, 30 years, and that's been true. But if you think about the voice dictation or recognition systems you may have had on your personal computer, remember the engine that did the recognition lived on your PC. What I'm about to show you is different. We take your voice, we compress it, we send it to the Google Cloud via the connected nature of the device, and then not one device, but maybe hundreds or thousands of computers in our cloud process that and deliver the result back, which leads to higher accuracy. It leads to things that were not possible before. Today, we've delivered English, Mandarin Chinese, Japanese, and this month, we'll also deliver German. It's nothing short of our goal, then, to deliver support for all the major languages of the world. But seeing is believing. Let me give you an example of this. Now, I have a microphone on, so the reverb may cause some issues, but let's try it. Let's try a query that I would probably never type into a phone because it's too long. Pictures of Barack Obama with the French president at the G8 summit. Clearly a query that probably wouldn't type in. That took about a second. It completely nailed the query and brought the Google search results back. Now, that's magical. And if you haven't tried that, I encourage you to try that on the iPhone, on the Android devices, and you get an idea of really the power there. Now, that was voice recognition working within Google Search. We want to enable that everywhere. In fact, we delivered a feature in the latest versions of Android called Voice Everywhere. And here's what it means. It means that anywhere on the phone where you can use a keyboard, you can instead choose to use voice recognition. Let me show you. You're looking at the text messaging capability in Android, and note there's a keyboard, but look at the bottom of the keyboard next to the space bar. You see that new button we just added? That enables you to input via voice. Let me try this. I'm going to be late. Go ahead and start dinner without me. Okay, one letter off, but you get the idea within a second of the complete magic here. And certainly, we continue to improve these systems and make them better and better as we collect more usage. Our systems are self-learning, and accuracy levels continue to rise. We are at the beginning of this investment. It's very exciting to contemplate what the next several years of computer science innovation will lead to. Now, that was the use of the humble microphone and turning it into something that can understand human speech in multiple languages. What about the camera? If you pull your phone out of your bag now, look at it, you turn it around, it's got a camera. But what if we could attach that to cloud-based resources? That's exactly what we did with a product called Google Goggles. Google Goggles allows you to take a picture and submit that picture to Google as your query. When would you find this useful? Well, let me give you an example when I found it useful. When we were in the early days of testing the product, before it was released, I had some friends come over for dinner. They arrived at my front door. They had been stuck in traffic for an hour, so the very first thing they asked for was to go to the restroom. And of course, I showed them to the restroom, and my friend handed me a bottle of wine they had brought and said, "This is for you." While they were in the restroom, I used Google Goggles to take a picture of the product, of the wine label. Of course, Google Goggles told me how much the wine cost, but it also told me hints, tasting hints, like that the product, or the wine, had hints of apricot and hibiscus blossom. Just then, my friend came out of the bathroom. I put my yet unreleased Google product away, and she made me pour the wine. It was her favorite wine. She said, "Vic, what do you think?" And I said, it's got hints of apricot and hibiscus blossom. Now, I don't even know what hibiscus blossom is, but Google Goggles, a powerful service connected to the cloud, let me get some information about that product. Now, some of you may be saying, well, I'm not going to take a picture of a wine bottle. Let me give you another example. Imagine you're traveling in a foreign country. Let's suppose you're in Japan, and you come across this famous monument. Now, you know it's a famous monument, but you don't speak Japanese, so how will you ever research it? What kind of query would you type in? Well, with Google Goggles, you can simply take a picture. Let me show you. I'm going to start up Google Goggles. I'm going to take a picture of that, of the screen, pretend I was in Japan. And let's come back here. You'll note there in about a second, right at the top, that famous Japanese shrine is identified. So you get an idea of the power of Google Goggles across products, across places, and once again, an area of computer vision that we're just beginning our research in. Now, another capability that is unique to the mobile device largely is its use of a GPS chip. Not only do we use the GPS chip, but we can use cell tower information, other techniques to really help identify the location of a device with the user's consent and permission. That enables all sorts of new scenarios. Let me give you an example of one. Let me switch over here to the iPhone for a moment. And you'll note this is the new google.com homepage on your iPhone, meaning just go into the browser and type in www.google.com. And there's a subtle new feature you may not have noticed. That blue dot says that I'm in Mountain View. Now, in this case, for the purposes of this demonstration, we have hard-coded the location to be that on Castro Street in Mountain View. But if you do this on your iPhone now, you'll likely see it show the city that you're in. Not only do we show the city that you're in, but we also show you what's near you now. Watch what happens when I click this button, this Near Me Now. Boom, it shows you right there that you're probably standing in front of this restaurant. And not only can you see what you're standing in front of, but everything that happens to be nearby you. Now take a look at this. There's a restaurant right there. Maybe you want to know something about that restaurant. If I select that, it'll take me to a mobile optimized place page that tells me everything I want to know about that restaurant. Isn't that fantastic? And no typing. Literally, I just said, near me now, clicked on it, found out what my own eyes were seeing. I was able to have Google help me find more information about them. Okay, let's move on to one other demonstration of a feature that we just launched on Wednesday of last week. So this is truly hot off the presses. This is use of location to help a consumer with a product search. In this case, I've done a product search for a Nikon D90. And we use your location right there to say that you're in Mountain View. But what we introduced on Wednesday of last week was something right here. You see that blue dot right there that says in stock nearby? When I select that blue dot, I'll see where that Nikon D90 is available based on my existing location. So you can see here, for example, that Best Buy has that product in stock and it's only 5.7 miles away from me. We think consumers will absolutely love this. We think advertisers will love this. And of course, it's a great way to make Google search even more valuable. Finally, let me show you the use of location and voice in a connected turn-by-turn navigation product. Now, some of you will likely say, I know turn-by-turn navigation. I have it in my car. What's different about Google's approach? Well, what's different about Google's approach is that we optimize for a connected device. Did you realize that of all the navigation systems out in the world, only a few small percentage of them are connected? So I'm going to show you a demonstration, but I'm going to show you 6 features that could only be delivered because we are a connected turn-by-turn navigation product. Let's begin by starting up our Maps product, and I'm going to navigate to a hotel in San Francisco, the Hilton. Now, I suspect that, like myself, many of you have to write down the address of where you're going before you get in the car. Or maybe you text message it so it's on your phone, email it to yourself, so when you're in the car, you have the address. Guess what? You don't need to know the address in the Google product because we use the cloud to disambiguate location. Let me show you. I'm simply going to tell the product to take me to the San Francisco Hilton. So I'll type in SF Hilton, no address, and Google will figure it out. It'll say, did you mean any of these Hiltons? And yes, the Hilton right at the top of the financial district is the one I wanted to go to, and off we go. That's feature number one, because it's connected. Feature number two that we can deliver because it's connected is one of my favorite. Keep your eyes at the bottom of the screen. You see there that green icon at 48 minutes? If I touch that button, I'll get an overview of my entire route with traffic that's updated every few moments. Now, I know how to get from my home to Google every day, but I use this feature because I can see updated traffic along the entire route for free. It's a fantastic feature because we're connected to the cloud. Another feature is our use of satellite maps. Satellite maps are very popular on desktop. But imagine how popular, how useful they are in a turn-by-turn navigation product, where I'm able to get context. I can see, the location is around this building or around the school. And we've seen consumers react very, very positively to this ability to have satellite views in the turn-by-turn product. Okay, let me move on to another feature that can only be delivered because we're connected. How about search? Now, you may have a product in your car that allows you to search for ATMs or gas stations. But what about if you want to search for Olive Garden? What if you want to search for your favorite restaurant or a business? Then what? Well, because we're connected, we can search on anything that Google knows about. In this case, I'm also going to show you search plus the ability to search along the route. So let me do a search. I'll do a search for something pretty benign. Actually, not Starbucks. I could search for Starbucks, but in this case, I want to search for burgers. Okay? And what's amazing here, if I zoom out, you'll really see the capability here, is that what Google is doing is Google is giving me all the burger places along the route I'm traveling. So I can select, there's McDonald's, there's another McDonald's, I can call the McDonald's if I wanted to. In this case, let's try another one. There's a Burger King, there's another McDonald's, there's a Rave Burger, there's I guess a generic burger joint, and there's an In-N-Out Burger. So just a powerful example of search associated with the route that you're going on across anything that you want to do. Now, finally, let me talk about another thing that we provide because it's connected. Think about your navigation product today. When you get to your destination, what does your navigation product say? Mine says your destination is ahead 200 yards. My wife's is a little bit better. Hers tells that it's 200 yards ahead on the left, but that's about it. Now, wouldn't it be great if Google could take its Street View imagery and show you a picture of where you need to go? Well, we do all that and more. We'll show you a picture, not only of your destination, but of every turn. All you have to do is double tap on the screen. We'll show you your next turn, show you a picture of exactly what that turn looks like, and in fact, give you the ability to interact with Street View so you can get a real sense of where you're going and where the key turns are. Isn't that fantastic? Now, one last feature. We realized that this application, while incredibly useful, was often difficult to use when it was an arm's length away on your dash. And so when the Android device detects that it has been put into a dock on a dash, we changed the user interface to be one that was friendly of an arm's length interaction. All the buttons become bigger, very easy to use. Now, let me put all of this together. Turn-by-turn navigation with disambiguation of address, with the inclusion of voice, with this new UI. Suppose I want to go to the museum that has the King Tut exhibit in San Francisco. I don't know the address. I don't even remember the name of the museum. Watch this. Navigate to the museum in San Francisco with the King Tut exhibit. Absolutely nailed the voice recognition in under a second. And then Google disambiguates the address. It's the D. Young Museum, right at the top, Absolutely perfect, and I'm on my way. Okay? So that concludes the demonstrations. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, and okay. So you got a sense there of how we're not just taking our desktop services that consumers know and love and delivering them on mobile, but how we're really optimizing for the unique capabilities of that mobile device. Excuse me just one second. Okay, so optimizing for that mobile device really also includes not just the applications, but includes advertising. And now let's shift our focus and talk about advertising in the mobile space. Advertisers see the same magic that we're seeing. They're seeing the consumer adoption of mobile devices and smartphones everywhere. But from the eyes of the advertiser, it's a nightmare. How do you build advertising solutions that work across RIM, BlackBerry, iPhone, Nokia, Windows Mobile, Android? Oh, don't forget about J2ME and Java. Oh, what about the carrier-specific regions of the world? What about KDDI and Docomo and the ecosystems they've created? In fact, the fragmentation is far worse than I just described. Because when you say BlackBerry, you don't really mean BlackBerry. You mean the entire top row. You could mean a device that is touchscreen, not touchscreen, keyboard, no keyboard, and that applies across every one of these variety of phones. And so advertising is not like it was on the desktop, where you could target a Firefox browser, Internet Explorer, maybe Chrome, and you could cover the vast majority of the market. It is incredibly fragmented and complex. Google's strategy can be described simply as making things easy for advertisers. Now, that may sound like a marketing slogan. Let me show you how easy we've made it. What you're looking at now is a screenshot of the tool that advertisers use when running advertising campaigns with Google. It's called AdWords. What's amazing here is the simplicity of our approach. Look at number 2 there. You see that second checkbox? iPhones and other mobile devices with full internet browsers? An advertiser merely has to have that box checked, and Google will take the complexity out of the system. We will then look for phones that are capable of running these ad creatives and serve them in all the appropriate places. Maybe in a Google search result, like you see there on the left, or maybe in some of our most popular applications, like Google Maps you see in the middle, or maybe it's a display brand ad that we can run on one of our or our partner properties like YouTube. Now, in addition to running campaigns, there's another phenomenon that's worth mentioning, and that is the incredible usage of mobile apps. You know, some studies have come back with data that has even surprised Google. Like, for example, did you realize that 25% of Android users and iPhone users who download apps spend up to 2 hours a day in those applications? And so that's a tremendous opportunity for us. And it's an opportunity we've been focused on. Currently, we have in beta or trial or experiment phase something called AdSense for mobile apps. And this beta product allows advertisers who we've whitelisted to help us build the right kinds of advertising solutions so that these ads can appear in a relevant way in mobile applications. You see a couple of examples on the screen like Urban Spoon and Shazam, and we continue to invest here. Now, it's also probably intuitive to this audience that location can make an ad more relevant. If I search for pizza, I'd like to see someone who offers pizza right around my location. And the same is true for almost all other categories of search. And so it's no surprise that Google has invested a half-decade in location technology. That includes our earliest work with Google Mobile Maps. It includes the building of a My Location platform that automatically knows where you are. And as recently has included some of the demonstrations I just showed you with turn-by-turn navigation. In fact, we collect hundreds of millions of data points with the user's consent and permission every day. And that database really is helping us refine how we think about location and advertising. And that's worldwide. Let me give you 2 examples of how we use that location. On the left-hand side, you see something called click-to-call. This is so simple, you might have missed it. We launched this just last month. You note there's an ad for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. But in that ad is a phone number. That phone number is clickable, and it's a billable or chargeable interaction. Now, what that means is that the advertiser gets a call for the price of a click. And it's no wonder advertisers have responded so well to this program. And of course, consumers love the ability to see an ad, click on the number, call the business right away. And this is an example of something that's new that we can really go do on mobile. The right-hand side, you see something that's still in experiment phase, but some of you may have seen this and been part of our mobile experiments. That is what we call a local ad layer. When a consumer does a search for a movie theater or a coffee shop or a hotel, we'll offer that user the ability to show that on that map from here on out, added as a layer. And so for some users, whether it be their favorite hotel chain, their favorite movie restaurants, their favorite coffee shops, they like the ability to go serve that brand right on that map perpetually. Once again, a win for the consumer, win for the advertiser, something that, of course, that helps Google as well. Let me recap. The industry trends are blowing in Google's favor. The internet that we have long waited for has arrived on mobile. Flat data plans or simple data plans combined with powerful smartphones that have gone mainstream. And most importantly, the emergence of the web browser that spans all devices is something that we think is very good for both the consumer and for Google. Secondly, Google is investing in mobile across all of our applications, but we're doing it in a way that leverages the unique, connected, sensor-rich nature of mobile devices. And finally, mobile advertising is an area that we continue to be focused on and very excited about, not just because of what we've learned on desktop, but because of how new technologies like location can make ads even more relevant.